The sun beat down on the cracked asphalt in rural Connecticut as Alyssa Carter, a 10-year-old black girl, walked with her worn backpack slung over her back. Her already unlaced sneakers dragged on the dusty road as she hummed softly to distract herself from her fatigue. It was then that she spotted a red Ferrari parked on the shoulder, hood open, smoke billowing as a distress signal. The contrast was stark. Luxury jammed against simplicity. Beside the car, a man in an impeccable suit and a shiny watch gesticulated furiously into his cell phone. It was William Anderson, a billionaire known for never taking no for an answer. With each passing second, his voice grew louder. "Get another car now. I can't miss this meeting." But her desperation only seemed to grow as she faced the helpless car. Alyssa stopped, observing the scene with the innocence of someone who still saw the world as a curious puzzle. With firm steps, she approached. Her sweet voice broke the haughty silence. "Sir, do you need help?" William let out a sarcastic laugh, looking her up and down. To him, she was just a poor little girl offering to repair a $1 million Ferrari. But in that moment, something changed. What William Anderson didn't know was that that little girl wore on her finger a ring capable of turning his world upside down. William Anderson hung up the phone angrily, still in disbelief at being stranded on a deserted road. The image of a billionaire surrounded by luxury but powerless over a broken-down car was almost ironic. He looked at Alyssa with disdain, as if brushing away an inconvenience. "That's not a toy, little girl. You can't fix a Ferrari with duct tape." The arrogant tone reflected someone accustomed to giving orders, not listening. But Alyssa didn't back down. She looked at the open engine and, unfazed, commented, "It's leaking coolant. If it keeps up like this, the engine might melt." William arched an eyebrow, surprised to hear technical terms from a girl in a baggy t-shirt and faded backpack. Limo drivers and luxury mechanics never dared to speak to him like that. For the first time, William felt something strange, respect disguised as curiosity. He snickered, trying to maintain his superiority. "And what do you suggest? Blow it out and get it working again?" Alyssa pulled a small piece of special electrical tape from her backpack, which she used in her school science projects. Calmly, she secured the hose and adjusted the pressure. William watched in disbelief as the engine roared again, albeit improvised. The billionaire's silence was as loud as the roar of the revived car. Deep down, something in Alyssa's gaze disconcerted him. She didn't seem to want to impress or flatter him, just to help. This went against everything William knew about relationships in the business world, which were always fueled by self-interest. "What's your name?" he asked, trying to hide the shock. "Alyssa Carter," she replied, pulling her hair into a makeshift bun. It was at that moment that William saw the detail that froze his heart. On his finger, a ring with an emerald glinted in the sunlight. It wasn't just any jewel. It bore a small, moon-shaped imperfection, a unique detail William knew all too well. The billionaire froze, as if he'd seen a ghost. For a moment, the engine running no longer mattered. His eyes were fixed on the jewel, which seemed to connect the present to a past he was trying to forget. Because that ring wasn't just an inherited keepsake. It was the key to unlocking secrets buried for decades, secrets that could ruin the entire Anderson empire. Alyssa knelt on the side of the road, oblivious to the dust that stained her knees. While William kept his arms crossed impatiently, she examined every detail of the engine as if it were a daily task. "Here's the problem," she said, pointing to the coolant leak. William laughed arrogantly. "You think you know more than Ferrari? Engineers?" But the girl's conviction was unshaken, and her calm made the billionaire feel even more uncomfortable. She pulled a special electrical tape from her backpack, used for school science fair experiments. Moving confidently, she cut a piece and wrapped it around the cracked hose with surprising precision. "This will hold until we get to a repair shop," she explained without hesitation. William watched every move, torn between disbelief and irritation. At needing a child's help, it was as if his pride were being patched together along with the engine. When Alyssa finished, she tapped the hood lightly and smiled. "You can try starting it now." William snorted, turned the key, and, to his surprise, the engine roared back to life. The powerful roar of the Ferrari contrasted with the awkward silence that had fallen over him. For the first time, the man accustomed to controlling everything felt vulnerable in front of someone who theoretically, shouldn't have any power. Alyssa, without realizing it, had reversed the roles. William, still surprised, tried to regain his superiority. You were lucky. A little makeshift fix doesn't change anything. But deep down, he knew there was something different about this girl. It wasn't just her improvised skill, it was her calm confidence. As she wiped her hands on a cloth, Alyssa tied up her hair, and it was with that simple gesture that William's world stopped. The green glow on her finger revealed the emerald ring with a moon-shaped imperfection. His eyes fixed on the jewel as if time had frozen. He knew that ring. Old memories began to overshadow the present. Forgotten faces, broken promises, family, secrets. William swallowed, unable to hide his shock. Alyssa simply adjusted her backpack and waved casually. "Good luck, sir." What seemed like just an unlikely encounter on the road would be the first step in unearthing a past the billionaire believed was buried forever. William remained standing on the side of the road even after Alyssa walked away with light steps. The roar of the Ferrari now seemed distant, irrelevant. His eyes were fixed on the image of the ring, etched in his mind like an open scar. The small moon-shaped imperfection set in the emerald was unique. He knew this because he had seen that jewel years ago under circumstances he would rather forget. The past, which he had always kept hidden, was before him again, back at his mansion. William spent the night rummaging through old boxes. He pulled photographs, contracts, and buried memories from a safe. Among them, an enlarged photo clearly showed the same ring on the finger of a young woman, Elaine. William's heart raced. Alyssa had said she had inherited the ring from her adoptive mother, but how could Elaine's daughter appear now, after so many years? The question haunted him, like a shadow impossible to ignore. The billionaire couldn't sleep. Sitting in his office, he remembered hushed conversations about St. Mary's Home, where gifted children were kept under strict rules and dark mysteries. The jewel was proof of a broken promise. The echo of ancient voices seemed to whisper in his mind. Secrets he thought had been erased were back, more vivid than ever. With each memory, the weight of the truth became unbearable. Determined not to let this slip away, William called a private investigator. "I need you to find out everything about a girl named Alyssa Carter. 10 years old, she lives in Connecticut." The coolness in his voice hid the agitation that gripped his chest. While he waited for news, he opened the drawer and took out a business card, the same one he had given Alyssa in the heat of the moment, disguised as gratitude. A piece of paper that now felt like a cord connecting their two worlds. The next morning, the investigator returned with old documents. Amidst the yellowed reports, a name circled in red caught his eye. Alyssa Carter. William shuddered. The ring wasn't just a coincidence. It was a direct connection to secrets that could ruin his own family name. The billionaire thought he was investigating a child, but in reality, he was unearthing the truth that could destroy his entire family. Alone in his office, lit only by the light from his monitor, William enlarged old digitized photos of the St. Mary's Home orphanage. The red brick building, abandoned for years, loomed large on the screen like a ghost that refused to disappear. Every window seemed to conceal the voices, laughter, and cries of forgotten children. And among the photographs, there stood Elaine, young and smiling, with the same emerald ring on her finger. The sight was like a punch to the gut. William closed his eyes and recalled the narrow corridors of the orphanage he had visited as a teenager, taken by his father, Robert Anderson, who spoke of a special talent project. At the time, he believed it was simply family philanthropy. But now, remembering Robert's cold tone and the children disciplined like soldiers, he realized something darker was happening there. The past he had tried to erase was returning like a ghost demanding justice. Memories mingled with guilt. William remembered seeing Elaine on one of these visits, a young woman who, despite living surrounded by strict rules, had a spark of freedom in her eyes. It was she who, years later, mysteriously fled with a small child in her arms. And now, with Alyssa's name circled in red on the documents, everything fell into place. The little girl on the road was the child Robert had so longed to erase. The researcher returned with more evidence, files mentioning educational experiments, and talent selection conducted within the orphanage, all funded by the Anderson Group. On several pages, Elaine's name appeared as someone who tried to expose the truth before disappearing. William trembled as he read. The jewel, the orphanage, the escape, none of it was coincidence. Each piece formed a puzzle of secrets that were now about to explode. William realized that Alyssa wasn't just a bright girl helping with a broken-down car. She was the missing link in an ancient promise, the echo of a courageous escape, and living proof that the Anderson empire was built on rotten foundations. The morning after meeting William, Alyssa arrived home still intrigued. As she unpacked her backpack, she told her Uncle Marcus and Aunt Denise about the angry Ferrari millionaire and how the improvised repair had worked. But when she mentioned that William had fixed his gaze on her ring, the two exchanged a quick, tense glance. Alyssa noticed the heavy silence that hung in the air, as if she had opened an old wound. "That ring, you must never take it off," Denise said, trying to sound calm. But Alyssa, curious, insisted, "Why, it's just Mommy Elaine's ring, isn't it?" Marcus sighed, opened a drawer, and pulled out a yellowed envelope, already worn with age. "Elaine asked us to save this for when the time is right," he explained. Alyssa's hands trembled as she tore off the ancient seal and found a handwritten letter from her adoptive mother. In the letter, Elaine described her desperate escape from St. Mary's House Orphanage. She recounted how she discovered that children were being used in special programs funded by the Andersons and decided to take Alyssa with her to save her. She also explained that the ring was not just a family heirloom, but a key to hidden secrets, evidence that could bring down the Anderson empire. The words were a mixture of farewell and urgent warning. Alyssa wept silently, absorbing every sentence. She'd always known Elaine held a weight in her gaze, but she'd never imagined it was connected to something so dangerous. The ring now felt heavier on her finger, as if it carried the responsibility of an entire world. "So, I'm part of this Anderson family?" she asked, swallowing hard. Marcus nodded sadly, while Denise held his hand tightly. At that very moment, William received a call from his investigator. "Mr. Anderson, there's someone else researching St. Mary's home. A journalist named Ethan Miller is gathering evidence to expose the case." William closed his eyes, knowing time was against him. As Alyssa discovered the truth about her origins, much larger forces were already moving to decide whether this revelation would be light or destruction. William entered the Anderson family mansion with firm steps, but inside he felt the weight of a son who needed to confront his own blood. The patriarch, Robert Anderson, waited in the library, surrounded by mahogany bookshelves and the scent of cigars. "So you've finally discovered something that should have stayed buried," Robert said, without even looking up from the newspaper. The coldness in his tone was as sharp as a blade. "Who is Alyssa Carter?" William snapped bluntly. The newspaper slipped from Robert's hands, revealing an icy gaze. "She's a mistake, a ghost who should have disappeared along with her mother." William clenched his fist, his heart racing. "You exploited children in that orphanage, didn't you? You turned lives into experiments, like disposable parts." The words echoed through the room like hammer blows. Robert showed no regret. On the contrary, he stood imposingly. "I built an empire. I trained minds. I selected talent. The world belongs to those who have the courage to shape it, William. If some children were lost in the process, it was the price of progress." The ease with which he spoke made his son's blood boil. For the first time, William saw his father not as a visionary, but as a predator, masquerading as a philanthropist. "You sent Elaine after her when she ran away, didn't you?" William forced the question he already knew the answer to. Robert took a deep breath, leaned closer, and murmured, "She knew too much, and she took something that belonged to us, that child and that ring." The confirmation fell like a sentence. William took a step back, his heart breaking. The girl who fixed his Ferrari wasn't just a stranger. She was the living reminder of the guilt his father had tried to bury. William left the mansion without looking back. The image of his father remained etched in his mind like an empire built on bones. But on the other side, Alyssa was beginning to realize that the ring on her finger wasn't just an inheritance. It was a key that would unlock the vault of secrets capable of bringing down the Andersons once and for all. The Anderson Corporation conference room, accustomed to multi-million-dollar meetings and cold speeches, became a tense scene. Executives, lined up in expensive suits, awaited yet another strategic announcement. But instead of spreadsheets and charts, William entered, accompanied by a federal prosecutor and 2 security agents. The buzz grew like wildfire. Silence returned when the lights dimmed. The screen flashed brightly. The first image projected was an old document, records from the St. Mary's Home Orphanage, funded directly by the Anderson Foundation. Children's names, experiments described as special programs, and performance notes were listed as if they were laboratory data. Murmurs spread around the table. William stared at the executives, feeling the weight of every second. "This is the true legacy of our fortune," he said, his voice firm. Then, never-before-seen footage appeared on the screen. Security cameras showed Elaine running through the orphanage's hallways on a rainy night, holding a baby, Alyssa, in her arms. Another recording showed Robert Anderson, her father, ordering security guards to pursue her. "Bring her back. Nothing can get out of here." The images fell upon those present like a thunderclap, and shocked eyes turned to William, who was now defying the empire. The reports released confirmed hidden payments to doctors and politicians to cover up irregularities, millions embezzled, bribes disguised as donations. The federal prosecutor explained that the investigation was already advanced and that the evidence would be sufficient to open a criminal case against Robert Anderson. Each document released was a blow to the wall of silence that had sustained the corporation for decades. At that moment, the door to the room opened. Alyssa entered, accompanied by Ethan Miller, the journalist investigating the case. Her presence was like a ray of light piercing the gloom. If the evidence up to that point was devastating, what came next would be impossible to dispute, because the final key to bringing down the Anderson empire was hidden in a simple ring on the finger of a 10-year-old girl. The entire room fell silent as Alyssa approached the conference table. Small in front of executives and federal agents, she seemed out of place, but her eyes shone with a firmness that no one dared question. William stood as if to protect her, but Alyssa calmly raised her hand. "This ring isn't just a reminder of my mother. It holds the truth everyone tried to hide." The lights reflected off the green stone, capturing everyone's attention. With a delicate movement, she turned the emerald until she heard a barely perceptible click. The jewel opened like a secret compartment, revealing a hidden microdevice. The room immediately murmured. Ethan Miller, the journalist, connected the device to a prepared laptop. Within seconds, the screen filled with files, contracts, lists of names, medical reports, and even audio recordings. Each document revealed shocking details about St. Mary's Orphanage. Voices echoed over the loudspeaker. It was Robert Anderson, ordering experiments, discussing payments to politicians, and ordering that no child leave the orphanage walls without authorization. Shock rippled through every corner of the room. Executives covered their mouths in horror. The federal prosecutor frantically took notes. William, for his part, watched motionless, torn between the pain of the revelation and the hope that justice was finally at hand. The data began streaming live, connected directly to secure media networks. Within minutes, the scandal was spreading. Through newsrooms and online platforms, it was impossible to contain. Every secret kept for decades became a headline before the eyes of the world. Alyssa, the girl who had been invisible until then, now became the voice that echoed in defense of all forgotten children. At that moment, the door burst open. FBI agents entered with arrest warrants. Robert Anderson, previously untouchable, was handcuffed in front of everyone, shouting in vain that it was a setup. The empire, built on innocence, was finally crumbling, and the key to its downfall came not from a tycoon or a politician, but from the tiny finger of a 10-year-old girl. Years had passed since the day the Anderson empire collapsed before the world. The land where St. Mary's Orphanage once stood, once a symbol of pain and silence, now bloomed with vibrant colors. On the same spot, Alyssa was inaugurating the Carter Center for Young Innovators, an education and technology space geared toward low-income children. The modern building, with glass windows and colorful murals, represented not only a new beginning, but the victory of memory over injustice. During the opening ceremony, former employees of the former Anderson Corporation, now rehabilitated and promoted, were present as supporters. William Anderson, transformed by Alyssa's revelation and courage, had donated a large portion of his fortune to support the center. In his speech, he publicly admitted, "The true legacy is not what we inherit from our parents, but what we choose to build with our own hands." The applause echoed like thunderclaps of approval. Inside the center, robotics rooms, digital libraries, and music studios offered opportunities that once seemed unattainable to young people like Alyssa. Children of all backgrounds experimented with their skills, discovering hidden talents. The motto emblazoned over the entrance read, "No talent is invisible." Every detail was a tribute to Elaine, the mother who risked everything to save her daughter and leave her with the key to the truth. Alyssa, now a teenager, walked the halls smiling. In her office, she kept Elaine's letter framed next to the open ring in a glass display case. For her, it was not only a symbol of victory, but a constant reminder of the price of courage. In the eyes of each smiling child, she saw confirmation that the painful past had given way to a future full of hope. That afternoon, Alyssa received a mysterious letter addressed to her. It was from Victoria Anderson, a distant relative who had broken with the Empire long before the scandal. The letter revealed that Elaine had saved not only Alyssa, but other children who had managed to escape thanks to her sacrifice. From the cracked asphalt of a road, a fertile garden of dreams was born. Because an invisible girl had the courage to show the world that even a forgotten ring can change destinies. The Anderson scandal made headlines across continents, but the real headline was something much bigger: the transformation of pain into hope. Alyssa, who once walked alone down a dusty road with a worn backpack, was now a symbol of courage and justice. Her story wasn't just about revenge or exposing crimes, but about the ability of an invisible child to change the course of an empire. She proved that dignity doesn't depend on a surname, but on choices. With the Carter Center for Young Innovators, Alyssa taught every day that talent can flourish anywhere, as long as it's given opportunities. William, redeemed, became a patron of social projects and used his fortune to support causes he'd previously ignored. The past couldn't be erased, but it could be corrected with concrete actions. The power isn't in the money we inherit, but in the impact we leave, Alyssa said in interviews, inspiring young people around the world. True power comes not from fortune or inheritance, but from the courage to transform injustice into a future. Alyssa Carter proved that even the simplest gestures can tear down walls built by generations. And the final call echoes softly but firmly. If this story inspired you, subscribe to the channel for more stories about how small acts can topple entire empires and shine a light where there was only darkness.